Hello, my name is Lucas Amory. I'm part of the H.O.P.E team conducting the Beethoven Sonatas project, and I'm proud to present the Beethoven Opus 31 number 3 Sonata in E-flat major. So today you're going to be hearing a few interviews and also a few performances from 4 excellent young pianists, and I really hope you enjoy. This is Beethoven in his middle period. If you remember from perhaps previous videos, Beethoven has his pieces denominated into an early, a middle, and a late period, and the Opus 31 sonatas are usually considered his entrance into his middle period. How's it going?
Hello.
Would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself, how old you are, the number of years you've been playing piano?
Yes, so my name is Katie, and I am 17 from Pittsburgh, PA, and I've been playing the piano for about 12 years, and my teacher is Natasha Snikovsky, and I also enjoy doing other hobbies like dancing, and I also play violin in my local youth orchestra, the Pittsburgh Youth Symphony Orchestra, and I also play violin in a quartet.
What kind of dancing do you do?
It's like mostly Chinese traditional, but also ballet.
Whoa, that's cool. Hey, you're Raditya?
Yeah, I'm Raditya.
Excellent. Nice to meet you.
Okay, so I'm Raditya Mulyadi. I'm 10 years old. I live in Parker, Colorado, and I've been playing the piano since I was 4 years old. Around 6 years old. 6 years playing the piano. Other than piano, I do taekwondo. I like sports. I'm also writing a book. It's kind of like Mission Impossible. So I like make a mission and then a group of people do it. Also in Parker, there's this teen court, and sometimes I get to be a panel member or a juror.
Are you saying for disciplinary offenses or like?
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's really intense.
My name's Megan. I'm 18, woo-woo, kind of old now. And I've been playing piano for 14 years now. And I guess just like outside of piano, I'm into science, kind of STEMmy stuff, as well as I also do taekwondo, and I like to sing. So yeah. I'm from Central Jersey, and I just graduated from Ridge High School.
Hi, I'm Vanessa. I'm 18, and I've been playing the piano since I was 6. So I think it's been 12-ish years, although it doesn't feel that long. I'm in Toronto from Canada, and I will be starting school at the University of Toronto this fall. Some fun facts. I'm extraordinarily clumsy, and I will trip over flat ground. But I am also somehow a freelance calligrapher. I like bullet journaling and plants as well.
How are you introduced to H.O.P.E?
I was actually initially added to the group chat in the beginning when it all started,
wow.
early. But I didn't really participate until a little later when I saw the awesome projects, a bunch of projects that H.O.P.E was planning. So I decided to officially sign myself up and participate in a few videos.
Gotcha.
So I'm a Long International Music Foundation Young Scholar, and one of the other young scholars, her name is Catherine. She participated in the first H.O.P.E project. I think it was the Beethoven Pathetique Sonata.
Yes.
Yeah, and she participated in that one. I watched the video and I became interested, and I started to participate in some collaborations.
I found out about H.O.P.E through, I think, Instagram from one of my friends that I had met at the Indiana University Piano Academy this past summer. So that's how I found out about it. I think my friend had just posted about it on her story or something. I was like, wow, that seems super cool and super interesting. And then I kind of just checked H.O.P.E out, and I was like, whoa, I have a lot of mutuals who are already involved in it. So
That's a good question, actually, because I found out about it through your Instagram story.
Oh, really?
After you shared the first episode on Beethoven's Pathetique, I watched it, was amazed, and said, okay, how do I join?
So, we've all been quarantined for a few months now, and how would you say COVID has changed your work habits with both piano, schoolwork, and potentially other extracurricular work that you have?
Yeah, of course, Corona kind of just screwed everything over big time, but I have, in general, more time to practice, of course, and also more time to do things I normally don't do, like cook. I made dumplings, actually, the last time with my dad.
Yeah.
And I also have more time to procrastinate, so I have to make a schedule for myself.
Nice.
And I'm trying to get in shape by doing some Chloe Ting
workouts.
Chloe Ting. And super sad though, because my orchestra tour this year got canceled. We were originally going to go to the Baltics and Scandinavia, but yeah. But in general, I think quarantine has yielded some good things.
Everything now has to be online, obviously, and but I also have to be more independent from my teachers in both piano and non-piano. And for piano, I have to record a lot for more online competitions or for my teacher to see, because we can't have face-to-face lessons.
Mm-hmm. I see.
So I think first of all, it's kind of destroyed my sleep schedule a little bit. So there's that. But I think with that, like, I'm trying to fix it a little now. But it's also just, there's a lot more time in the day and a lot more flexibility. And with being at home and having even when school was still going on, just having less schoolwork in general, it gave me more time to practice as well, and they kind of spread it throughout the day instead of trying to chunk everything at night, or say something like that. And kind of similar with academic work, definitely trying to do everything online can be a little challenging, I suppose, just because there are some things that are easier to write out, like say if I'm trying to do chem or something like that, like writing stuff like that is just so much easier on paper than as opposed to typing it up. So
gotcha.
I mean, as with most people, I think I have a lot more time on my hands than I did before, since everything was canceled. My efficiency, however, has been questionable. Like, some days I get a lot done and other days I really don't. And especially for piano, I think having online lessons was harder to transition to, because honestly, it's kind of weird playing for a screen. So that was, I guess, in a sense, less motivating than having in-person lessons. Recently, I think I've figured out a more consistent schedule. So with the routine, that's helped a little bit, especially with regards to practicing and studying and just trying to balance everything. So hopefully that works out.
You're contributing the first movement, right?
Yes.
Would you like to just describe a few things about this movement, like the character, the themes, the type of techniques that you need to really excel at in order to make it stand out?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the main thing I would say in this movement is the dotted rhythm at the beginning, like the ambiguous da-da-da at the beginning. And we actually don't even know what key the sonata is in until the 8th bar, I think. And the dotted rhythm, of course, it occurs throughout the rest of the movement in high and lows. The movement and the sonata in general is probably pretty sunny. I would say probably one of the most bright of Beethoven's piano sonatas.
I think this Beethoven sonata is the happiest of all the sonatas that Beethoven wrote.
It's one of his happier, more cheerful pieces.
This entire sonata is very lighthearted and, as I said, really fun.
In terms of technique, there's passages where you have to keep the left kind of playing the same note, but also kind of making it not prominent, while the right hand does dotted melodies and things like that. And also there's a few kind of harder trill passages throughout the movement. And also making sure all the dotted rhythms throughout the movement are different, because you can't play them the same way.
Mhm.
So,
Which movement are you contributing today?
The second movement of the Beethoven Sonata. This second movement is really light, fast, and happy, in contrast to the first movement, which is kind of serious. And the thing that makes it difficult is that because of its lightness and fastness, I can also miss notes. It could also make my accuracy go down. Yeah, especially the 30-second notes.
You're contributing the third movement, right?
Yes. First of all, it's important to note that this is the last sonata that Beethoven wrote with like an actual formal minuet, which is the third movement in this case. I think when we take a look at the third movement, out of all four movements, I would definitely say it's the most serious one. It's definitely more on the lyrical side, more calming. Probably, I would even describe it as like a almost underlying sense of nobility and kind of grace in that sense. So there's kind of that aspect to it. And it's split, the minuetto is, the third movement is split into kind of, it's like an ABA coda. So you have that like minuet, the A section, and then you have like the little trio, the B section, and then back to the minuet, and then the coda. And when we're looking at the minuet, that's definitely like the part that I would really describe as like really nice, calm, peaceful, lyrical. A lot of focus on like the melody line, but of course always working to balance that out with the bass line and the alto line, as opposed to the trio section. That's like the kind of slightly more playful section.
So you're playing the fourth movement of this sonata.
Yes. All the Opus 31 sonatas he wrote while he was at Heiligenstadt, and we know that that's where he produced the famous Testament. And so comparing the darker mood of Tempest to this sonata, it's definitely starkly different. And I think that's part of what makes it so interesting. The fourth movement, it's marked presto con fuoco, so it's a gallop of sorts in 6/8. And the entire sonata is nicknamed La Chasse, or The Hunt, and it's actually based on motives from the fourth movement. So in this fourth movement, there's a hunting horn-like motive, and that kind of serves as the basis for the entire work. So we have this motive, it's transformed, it undergoes sequences, different keys, and it unifies the work, but then the one thing that pervades throughout the movement is the exuberance. Like, of course, there are moments where it's more stormy or more comedic, but it's very uplifting in general. Part of what makes this movement especially so fun is how Beethoven, he leads you to think that he's building to a climax. It becomes exciting. And then the peak is the most anticlimactic thing ever. And it just goes back to the fun galloping theme. But what contributes to that is the rhythm. And the issue here is that the rhythm isn't always very kind, because there are some moments of awkward syncopation, and sometimes I'll find my two hands totally not together. But that might just be a me problem because I don't have a great sense of rhythm. But that's definitely something that I've found somewhat, I guess, annoying while working on this movement. Yeah, I think this sonata really shows a different side of Beethoven, because he's so often associated with their Sturm-und-Drang character, and although there's nothing wrong with that, it's just so special to be able to hear the really beautiful lyrical melodies that he was able to write, especially in the first movement. There are some really beautiful passages that make you question why Beethoven wasn't known more as a lyricist. And then in the fourth movement, there's so much pure joy, and it's so uplifting, and to think that he wrote this during his time at Heiligenstadt is quite something to think about.
Can you tell me a little bit more about his time at Heiligenstadt? I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, sort of. And just what you know about that, because I'm really curious.
Well, while Beethoven was there, he wrote the famous Heiligenstadt Testament. It was like a letter of sorts to his brothers detailing how he was coping with his deafness and how this affected his work, because he was going through some personal issues as well with his family. So it was a bit of a dark time, and to know that at a young age his hearing was already compromised definitely didn't help. And so in the letter he kind of detailed that he would be approaching composition differently.
So how long have you been working on this particular movement?
I guess on and off for performances and competitions about 3 years.
Around 4 months.
a month and a half, I'm gonna guess.
I think I've had this since mid-May-ish, so it hasn't been that long.
Oh,
I guess.
wow.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I haven't been working on it the whole time. I just pick it up sometimes for, when they require a Beethoven sonata. And I've tried learning the second movement a little, but I actually don't have the entire sonata learned. That's one of the things I probably want to do in the near future.
I think I picked up the first movement maybe about 2 years ago, and then kind of like took a little break from it. And now I was like, hey, like, let me just finish up all the rest of the movement.
You've been working on it on and off for about 2 years.
Mhm.
So have you had any memorable performances with this sonata?
Memorable performances? I don't think I've had a lot of them. Mostly, I guess I played at this one competition in Ithaca, New York, this sonata, which was a pretty cool experience because I haven't picked it up in a long time before this year, actually. So kind of reintroducing myself to it was a pretty cool experience. And I found like so many things I could do with it that I never thought about before.
Uh-huh.
My school had a virtual concert through Zoom after this quarantine started, and anybody from the school could play anything they wanted, and I chose to perform the second movement of this sonata. In January, we went to New York, and I also had a masterclass in the Juilliard School,
Oh, excellent.
and I played the first movement of this sonata.
Who was the masterclass with?
Miss Veda Kaplinsky.
Kaplinsky, yeah.
I've taken like a master class on it.
Okay.
This was like back in 2018, but that was it was interesting. It was with Boris Berman, so that was a
fantastic.
great learning experience to have. And then also, I think I also associate this sonata with honestly volunteering at like my local senior center, because
really nice.
it's also like, even the third movement, for example, it's like a really nice kind of like shortish piece to just pull out if we ever need any extra time to play or anything like that. So
While everyone was at home, like my school, we did some virtual recitals just to continue sharing music during this time, and they were really casual recitals. So I think a week after starting this, I said, you know what, I'll just bring it to a virtual recital. So that was
hardcore.
that. It was definitely memorable. But I think there's a certain excitement that comes from performing something fresh, because there's a certain risk of messing up, but it's just, you're so caught up in the joy of the moment that sometimes you forget.
Has your teacher provided any especially helpful tips about playing this Beethoven sonata? Has anything like really stuck out in your lessons?
So while I was learning, she said to kind of contrast the lightness of the sonata movement with the dark parts. There's like a few darker parts, and actually at the very beginning, after the dotted rhythm, there's like chords in the lower register, and to make those like much darker than the dotted rhythms and throughout the piece as well. And also she told me to keep kind of a simple happy mood throughout the piece, because I tend to make melodies kind of more melodic and singing.
In the beginning, when I started to learn this movement particularly, my teacher told me to play the staccato parts legato, and then after 2 to 3 weeks after I got all the accuracy down, she told me to start doing staccato.
I would say like probably with this movement, and I'm sure, and also like with all the other movements, I would say that the biggest tip that my teacher gave me that's kind of stuck with me is, it's gonna sound a little weird, but it's like trying to play it as if you're a sausage in a way. I know it sounds weird.
That came out of nowhere. I was not ready.
I promise it makes sense. It's like the idea that like you don't necessarily need so many like dramatic flares or anything like that when you're playing it, but like you want to be able to feel all of the kind of emotions and everything inside you, and like you want to be able to like kind of carry the long line and the melody throughout. So I know it's a very kind of funky analogy, but
There
it
are many
works for me.
there are many other foods that are not dramatic. Why'd she have to choose a sausage?
Definitely. We have a bit of a running joke that I haven't watched enough movies and TV shows. And so once when we were working on this movement, he asked me if I had watched Roadrunner, and obviously the answer was no. But after my lesson, I went to go watch some Roadrunner to educate myself, and that actually changed how I felt about this movement a lot, because it definitely helped with the unabashed comedic kind of character, because there's so much running away, chasing each other, failing miserably, teasing and taunting. And yeah, now whenever I play this movement, all I can think about is Roadrunner, so maybe it worked.
Are there any last details you'd like to provide before we end?
Yeah, so I think that this Beethoven sonata is the second to the last sonata that has 4 movements, which is kind of cool. And this sonata is also unique because it's also the last one that Beethoven wrote that has a proper minuet in it, the 3rd movement.
And fun fact, but actually Saint-Saëns used the trio as a theme for his variations of a theme on Beethoven, Opus 35 for 2 pianos. I'm so honored to be able to be like a part of this whole movement with H.O.P.E and everything. It's honest, what you guys have all organized is fantastic, and it's amazing to be able to just connect with like pianists around the world, because you know, like at this time music, it's so hard to do any kind of ensemble work or anything like that. So it's really nice to be able to have that connection online.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll see you around. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
So thank you very much, and I guess that's it. Okay. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. All right.
Have fun.
See ya.